Hello, welcome to Cozy Reviews. Usually just I review it. I was just catching up some reading. Welcome back to the Halloween franchise review. Today, we are continuing this franchise review by taking a look at Halloween 2 from 1981.
From the people who brought you Halloween, of the night he came home. Halloween 2.
There was nothing within him, neither conscience nor reason, that wasn't even remotely human.
Don't miss the all-new Halloween 2. Beware of the night he came home. Halloween 2, rated R. The horror continues. Now playing at a theater near you.
So yes, Halloween 2 was released in 1981, and it takes place where the first movie left off. Michael Myers, the unstoppable killer of the original Halloween, is still on the loose in Haddonfield somewhere. Laurie Strode, the girl that Michael failed to kill in the last movie, is rushed off to Haddonfield Hospital to recover after her attack. Which means Michael does not have to go very far with where to get his revenge. Halloween 2 really does great care with continuing where the last movie left off. Along with being seamless, as in you could connect these two movies together as one, and there wouldn't be any difference. Because Halloween 2 feels less like a sequel and more like a long epilogue to the first one. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, I just kind of wish it doesn't seem like it should take place on the same night as the first one. Now, some of the things that are kind of hard to kind of bug me are the way some of the returning characters that are left alive in the first movie are portrayed. For one thing, Laurie stays the majority of the film silent and recovering in bed, as apparently she stays just as silent as Michael and doesn't really talk that much. Jamie Lee Curtis and her character are sadly wasted away in the movie. The only real development we learn about Laurie is that she's really Cynthia Myers, the long-lost little sister of Michael Myers, which doesn't really have much to do with the plot, as it's just a way to explain why Michael came after her. And apparently it does make a little bit of sense. Michael killed his sister 15 years ago, and he tried to repeat that same act here. However, Laurie seems to be more confident in herself and actually manages to get away from Michael a few times. Dr. Loomis is once again played by Donald Pleasance, and he spins the same thing he did in the original Halloween, which was running around trying to stop Michael. Again, we don't really get much explanation on Loomis and why he has such interest in ending Myers' life. The only thing he does have to do is pretty much giving exposition about Michael to a new sheriff to get potentially new viewers up to speed. Loomis's obsession causes the young man to lose his life, as earlier in the film, Laurie's crush, Ben Tramer, is wandering around wearing a costume very similar to Michael's. This complete misunderstanding results in a bus crash where a cop car rams into the kid and causes the car to set on fire. Loomis's obsession causes the young man to lose his life, which results in a sort of unneeded subplot where Loomis is trying to figure out whether this corpse is really Michael's or not. A few other things are amped up. The gore is amped up too, as Halloween 2 is trying to be just as brutal as its gorier imitators. You see, the problem with that is that the thing with Halloween is it wasn't about cool kills like the Friday the 13th franchise. It was more about the shock value, what Michael could do, and the fear of what he would do next. At one point in the film, Michael lifts up a nurse with a blade and lifts her up, revealing his incredible strength, showing that Michael may not just be a guy with a knife. Could he be just a form of the devil? Is he a monster or a man? It's kind of hard to tell. Another thing is that, in the first movie, which the victims consisted of teenagers, a sex scene seemed normal. In this movie, however, there's a sex scene between an ambulance driver and a nurse, and just really much just somewhat of an excuse to give this film to have nudity in it. But also, it's another way to hint that these two were probably not going to live very long. A few other things. There are some good things about this movie, though. Michael Myers is once again wonderfully portrayed here, though he's not played by the same stuntman this time. In this movie, Michael's played by Dick Warlock, who is a really good choice. However, he seems more stockier and shorter than Keita Castle was. Another thing is that they have the exact same costume. Sort of. You see, apparently, after production wrapped on the original Halloween, the mask was given to Deborah Hill, the producer. And she really didn't do much with it, aside from having the mask in a box underneath her bed. thing about and that's why the mask looks really rotted yellow looking. Latex is not a very strong material. It rots away, especially if it's being kept in the house of a heavy smoker like Deborah Hill. When they had this, so luckily they didn't really have to worry about redoing the mask. Another thing is that Michael does seem to be a bit more indestructible in this time. He walks through a glass door and literally walks through it like it's nothing. He pretty much reveals how smart he can be, and also he gets shot once again multiple times, but doesn't even pretend that it kills him this time. He even does do it. He does, although again earlier in the film they show Michael's point of view as of him wandering around Haddonfield, killing people. But when he gets to the hospital, he just seems just because this film needs a higher body count, it just shows that Michael kills more people just for that. The thing of that is that, again, this movie doesn't really need to be all about having gorier kills or being more brutal. The first Halloween wasn't really wasn't really focused on gore. It focused more on the scare and shock factor. Alright, now that that's all the way, I'm about to give away the ending to Halloween 2. As I'm pretty sure predicted. You don't want to get spoiled, just, watch the movie. After Michael's killed half the hospital attendants, he goes after Laurie, and during this scuffle, they both end up in a room where a bunch of gas tanks are. During this whole thing, Laurie manages to say Michael's name, which causes him to pause briefly for really no reason. Then she grabs the gun, shoots him multiple times, shoots him in both eyes, but it doesn't really seem to faze him. Then her and Loomis light the room up with gasoline, and Loomis flicks his lighter, which causes the whole thing to explode, while Michael, on fire, still goes after Laurie. But in the heat of the moment, Michael collapses, revealing he was just a man after all. Now, the thing about this movie is that it should have been the definitive ending. Michael was killed, and you could rest easy knowing that the boogeyman was for real dead. But of course, the series continued after that. And unfortunately, the next movie we're going to look at is not a great film. But until then, I'm Good with the Reviewer, and I'll see you next time.